Hello everyone, welcome this session. Today I would like to discuss about the concept of colonialism and imperialism. In this lecture, I am going to discuss about the different aspects of colonialism and imperialism. What are the main features of this colonialism and what are the main factors for the establishment of these two different concepts. Before we are going to discuss about the topic, we can analyze the background of Europe during the medieval period. As we know that the industrial revolution in Europe ushered an era of machines made goods and scope for markets. In order to that, the never-ending demand for raw materials and also markets where the goods could be sold at cheap prices. As a part of this process, the European countries started their quest for territorial expansion. Over a period of time, this turned out to be a competition as to who could colonize and govern better. The voyages and discoveries undertaken at this time also propelled the need to occupy territory which had huge natural resources waiting to exploit it. The bonus was cheap laborers also available in this circumstance. This was the background of emerging colonialism and imperialism. Before we have to go to discuss about the topic, first we have to analyze what do you mean by colonialism. Colonialism, which means as the establishment of a colony in one territory by a political power from another territory and the subsequent maintenance, expansion and exploitation of that colony. Colonialism involves the unequal relationship between the colonial power and the colony, and the Europeans colonial period was the era started from the period of 16th century to the mid 20th century. Almost all the colonial countries they had followed a policy of mercantilism designed to strengthen the home economy. In addition with that, the modern colonialism started with the age of discovery. The European powers built a large colonial empire in the New World, especially Asia and African country, and established their hegemony over the economy and society of these colonies. Actually, the concept of colonialism is a specific form of economic and cultural exploitation. The process of the formation of this colonialism into different phases, such as the first phase which we have to known as the commercial colonialism, and the second phase which is we have to known as industrial colonialism, and the third phase was known as neo-colonialism or new colonialism, and the next phase, the fourth phase known as new imperialism, and etc. The different phases of this colonial expansion is closely related with the development of capitalism. The early phase of this colonialism, which emerged between the period of 1500 to 1763, and it was closely connected with the commercial revolution and merchant capitalism. During those days, the trading establishment was the key aspect of this merchant capitalist period. The next phase underwent a substantial changes during the period between 1763 to 1870. During those days, the advent of industrial revolution was mainly responsible for these changes. The period was also known as industrial capitalism. During this period, the industrialization brought about a shift into the strategy of colonial trade. In that period, the industrial nations searched for markets in colonies to sell their products. At the same time, they needed raw materials for their own industries. During those days, the trading patterns in the colonies were totally modified to the requirement of industrial capitalism. The term colonialism does not simply mean as a means of living in foreign territory. It implies the living and dominating the local population. Actually, the colonialism is a system of subjugation and domination of one country by another through conquest and settlement. Then in the practical level, the powerful country directly control over the less powerful country and uses their resources to increase their own power and wealth. The study of colonialism and imperialism is closely related. Often these words are used interchangeably. However, on a closer examination, one can find that they have distant meanings. Imperialism is a more general and a comprehensive term meanings, and which stands for all range of relations such as social, economic, political and cultural between the dominant and subject country. The word imperialism originated from the Latin word imperium, which means the supreme power. In this context, the term first we have to see become a common with the current sense in Great Britain during the 1870s. Actually, imperialism is an action that involves a country, usually an empire kingdom, extending its power by the acquisition of territories. In addition to this, it also includes the exploitation of these territories. Actually, we know that the term imperialism was mainly applied in Western political and economic dominance, especially in Asian and African countries during the 19th and 20th century. Historians were different opinion about the concept of imperialism and colonialism. One of the prominent historian, Edward Said, used the term more broadly to describe any system of domination and subordination organized with an imperial center and a periphery. The Russian great communist leader Lenin suggested that imperialism was the highest form of capitalism and claiming that imperialism developed after the colonialism. Imperialism is when a mother country take over a smaller nation or a colony for political, social and economic reasons. Mostly this imperialism can be divided into two important sects. First one, old imperialism, and the other sections which we have to known as new imperialism. Basically, the concept was not much difference, but the policy of acquiring control was slightly different. In the initial phase of this imperialism, the European countries found new trade routes to the established factories in the places they had to travel well. The imperialist powers, especially the Europeans, to realize the objective of industrial colonialism, and they believed that it could not be achieved with the existing socio-economic condition of those colonies. So the capitalist countries tried to transform the socio-economic structure of these colonies by introducing different changes. As a part of these changes, the imperialist countries adopted to different measures such as the introduction of private property in land, and also we can see the commercialization of agriculture, and also they formed a new labor system for their own benefit, and they established a new money market system for their own economic enhancement, which these kind of efforts and policies also very much benefited for these imperialist countries, and also they followed the policy of acquisition over the political power that ultimately enabled the imperialist powers to enforce these changes. Also and also we can see a lot of difference between these two concepts, imperialism and colonialism. Although imperialism and colonialism focus on the suppression of one other. Colonialism refers to the process of a country taking physical control of another. Imperialism refers to the political and monetary dominance, either formally or informally. Colonialism is seen to be the architect deciding how to start dominating areas, and the imperialism can be seen as creating the idea behind the conquest cooperating with the colonialism. Imperialism and colonialism both dictate the political and economic advantages over a land and the indigenous peoples or populations they control. The scholars sometimes find out difficult to illustrate the differences between colonialism and imperialism, and that's why we can say that these two concepts are closely related with each other. Thank you very much.